Imagine working your whole life to finally own a house and your own brother showing up, announcing he's moving in with his entire family, because family comes first. Even worse? My parents backed him up. What happened next tore my family apart forever. My name's Aaron, I'm 32, single, and living in Ashwood, a quiet town outside St. Louis, Missouri. A few months ago, I bought my first home, a cozy 3-bedroom cottage with a huge backyard, after nearly 2 years of living in the back of my truck. I thought life was finally turning around for me. I was wrong. The nightmare started one random Tuesday when I heard an aggressive knock at the door. I opened it, and standing there were my parents, my younger brother Marcus, 29, his very pregnant wife Kayla, and their 3 hyperactive kids, all holding fast food bags and suitcases. Marcus clapped me on the back like it was nothing and said, "Bro, we're home." Home? No. This was NY home. I was so stunned I barely reacted, and that hesitation cost me more than I ever could have imagined. Coming up, I'll tell you how my brother and his wife staged an actual invasion, how my parents gaslit me into believing I owed them my house, and how I plotted the most satisfying revenge I've ever pulled off in my life. But first, how did we even get here? Growing up, it was obvious I was the family afterthought. Marcus was the golden child. Always had been. No matter what he did, skipping classes, wrecking Dad's old Pontiac, getting a girl pregnant at 19, he was the precious boy who needed support. Me? I was invisible unless they needed someone to blame. We grew up in a crumbling ranch-style house in Willow Springs, a sleepy town where everyone knew your business by lunchtime. My parents, Carla and Rick, were old school, respect your elders even if they disrespect you types. They believed that loyalty was owed to family, no matter what, especially if you were born first, like Marcus. When I graduated high school, I didn't get a party or a handshake. I got a reminder that Marcus needs the room more than you. That night, I packed my things into trash bags and moved into my friend's basement. By 20, Marcus had 2 kids, 0 job prospects, and a baby mama, Kayla, who was just as spoiled and manipulative as he was. They all moved back into my parents' house, rent-free, of course, and Kayla made herself queen of the roost. I kept my distance after that. While they played perfect family back home, I worked 2 jobs, rented crappy apartments, and eventually bought a beat-up Chevy Silverado that doubled as my bedroom during the worst year of my life. Yeah, I lived in a truck for almost 18 months. There were nights I'd wake up freezing in Walmart parking lots, praying nobody would smash a window. Days I spent showering at truck stops or sneaking into gym bathrooms. And weekends where my biggest meal was gas station hot dogs and half-price donuts after midnight. But you know what? Every miserable second of it made me stronger. When I finally got hired at a small mechanical parts company in Ashwood, things turned around fast. Within a year, I moved from warehouse grunt to logistics supervisor, and my salary doubled. I lived frugally, saving every penny I could. Last November, I signed the papers for my first real home. A sweet little fixer-upper on the edge of town. Needed some elbow grease, sure, but it was mine. No landlords, no shared walls, no drunk neighbors pounding on the ceiling at 2 a.m. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. So yeah, maybe I posted a few too many proud photos online. Maybe I flexed a little too hard on Facebook. But I earned every damn brick of that house. I never imagined that my biggest enemy would turn out to be the people who should have been proud of me. And Marcus? He had a different plan for my future, one that didn't include me living in my own home at all. It happened 2 Saturdays after that first awkward pop-in visit. I was deep into replacing the cabinets in my kitchen, music blasting, tools everywhere, when I heard the doorbell ring. Then pound. Then a bam 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 like the police were about to kick the door in. I wiped my hands on my jeans, heart racing a little, and opened the door. It was Marcus. Not alone. Behind him was Kayla, holding their youngest kid on her hip, her other hand resting dramatically on her pregnant belly. My parents, Rick and Carla, flanked them, looking grim like they were there to deliver a funeral notice. "Hey, big bro." Marcus boomed, way too cheerful. "Can we come in?" Before I could answer, they just pushed past me. No shoes off. No questions. Just straight into my house like they owned the place. I followed them into the living room, confused, and noticed that Kayla was already checking out the furniture, touching the walls, making little sounds like she was touring an open house. Alarm bells went off in my head. "This is a lot of space for just one person," my mom commented, her voice dripping with something I couldn't place yet, not concern, not admiration. Something calculated. Marcus turned to me, clapped his hands together, and said, "All right, let's get down to it." Get down to what? Then he pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his hoodie pocket and waved it in front of my face like a game show host revealing a prize. It was some kind of fake rental agreement. Handwritten. No lawyer's letterhead. No notarization. Just a messy 2-page contract that said I was agreeing to sublease the premises to Marcus and his family, effective immediately, for the grand total of $0 a month. I blinked at it, then at them. "You can't be serious," I said, my throat dry. "Oh, we are," Kayla cut in, smiling so wide I could see every molar. "We've already arranged movers. They'll be here by noon. We figured it's best to just rip the Band-Aid off." My dad piped up, "It's the right thing, son. Marcus has a family to think about. And your camper's still in the back," my mom added, pointing toward the window. "You'll be just fine staying there for a while." I physically felt my heart drop into my stomach. They expected me, after all I'd suffered, after scraping myself up off the pavement of life, to just hand them my home like I was some kind of doormat. I asked, carefully, "Where exactly do you expect me to shower? Cook? Live? You can use the gym like you used to," my mom said, like it was obvious. "And you're a big boy. You can rough it until you find something new." Marcus laughed. "Come on, man. Don't be selfish. Family helps family." I felt like the room was tilting. This wasn't a conversation. This was a coup. And it got worse. Marcus started laying down rules, without even pretending to ask for my input. "You'll need to call before you come inside the main house. We'll be installing a baby gate at the stairs. You should get your truck moved. We'll need the driveway." Kayla chirped in. "Oh, and no guests after 9 p.m. Gotta keep it quiet for the baby." They kept talking over each other, laying out a future for my house where I was nothing but a dirty secret they kept in the backyard. It was like I wasn't even there. Like I was furniture. Something inside me broke. Not in a loud, explosive way. Not yet. No, it was quieter than that. Colder. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and set it face down on the coffee table. None of them noticed. Then I sat back, arms crossed, and just let them talk. And talk. And talk. Kayla was practically giddy by the time she started discussing paint colors for the nursery. "This will be perfect," she said, rubbing her belly with a gleam in her eye. "You'll be the best uncle/landlord ever." "Well, not really a landlord since you're not charging anything, but you get it." My dad nodded approvingly like I'd already agreed. My mom gave me a syrupy smile, the kind you give to a toddler when you're pretending they have a choice between carrots and carrots. "You'll do the right thing," she said sweetly. "You always have." And that was the final shove over the edge. Because no, I hadn't always done the right thing. I'd always done what they wanted. I'd spent my entire childhood swallowing my pride, bottling my pain, clapping along at Marcus's endless victories while they looked right through me. Not anymore. Not this time. When they finally stopped talking, a rare and beautiful moment of silence, I stood up. They looked at me expectantly, like I was about to thank them for the honor of being trampled. Instead, I said, "You have 5 minutes to get out of my house before I call the police and have you all arrested for trespassing." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's smile froze mid-grin. Kayla's mouth dropped open like she couldn't process what she was hearing. My parents looked at each other in panic. You're just being emotional," my mom sputtered. "You don't mean that." I calmly picked up my phone, held up the recording app, and said, This means I do. You've been recorded planning an illegal occupation of my property. One call, and you're all explaining this to a judge." Marcus took a step toward me, red-faced, fist clenching. "You selfish little shit," he hissed. "You're choosing walls over your own family?" Kayla started crying. Big, fake sobs. She even sank to her knees, clutching her belly dramatically. "My babies need a home," she wailed. "You can't do this to us." I didn't even blink. "Not my problem," I said coldly. They argued for another minute, throwing every manipulation they could think of at me: guilt, shame, threats, even my dad's stupid line about how blood is thicker than water. I stood there like a stone. When Marcus realized I wasn't budging, he lost it completely. Started screaming, pounding his fists on the walls, knocking over a lamp. That was it. I dialed 911 right in front of them. "I need officers at address. I have multiple intruders refusing to leave my home." Within minutes, the sirens were wailing down the street. When the cops showed up, Marcus tried to lie, said I'd invited them to move in. But I had the recording. I had proof. I had every receipt. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. They weren't invincible. They were just sad, Broken people who only had power over me because I let them. Not anymore. Not ever again. The cops didn't arrest anyone, though they definitely wanted to after seeing the trashed lamp, hearing the screaming, and witnessing Kayla's Oscar-worthy meltdown on my porch. But in the end, they treated it like a domestic dispute and issued a stern warning: leave immediately or face charges for trespassing, harassment, and destruction of property. My family left. They didn't go quietly. Marcus threw a screaming tantrum that woke half the neighborhood. Kayla fake stumbled down the steps like she was in labor. My dad muttered about what a disgrace I was all the way to the car. My mom sobbed loud enough to rival a soap opera funeral. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them pile into their minivan, all wails, rage, and righteous indignation. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt nothing. No guilt, no doubt, no hesitation, just a heavy, almost peaceful certainty settling over my bones. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, and leaned my back against the frame, feeling the weight of generations of manipulation finally slide off my shoulders. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls. Most from Mom, some from Dad. A handful from an unknown number I was 99% sure was Marcus borrowing a friend's phone. The voicemails were all the same. You broke your mother's heart. You'll regret this when you're old and alone. You're punishing innocent children, you monster. We'll take legal action if we have to. Legal action? Against me? For owning my own house? I laughed so hard I almost dropped my coffee. That was when I decided. I wasn't just going to defend my house. I was going to build a moat around my entire life, one that they could never cross again. And I was going to do it quietly. No screaming matches. No emotional outbursts. Just cold, methodical detachment. I started with the basics. First, I called a locksmith and had every single lock on the property changed: house, camper, shed, even the freaking garage padlock. Then I went to the county clerk's office and filed a notice of ownership and no trespassing affidavit linked to my deed. That way, if they showed up again, I could legally escalate to criminal trespass charges immediately. Next, I invested in some serious security. Outdoor cameras covering every angle of the property. Smart doorbell with two-way audio and motion alerts. Window alarms on every ground floor pane. Backup battery system in case they tried to accidentally kill the power. I also went nuclear on the digital front. I blocked my entire family on social media. Changed my phone number. Updated all my passwords. Locked down my credit reports with a PIN to prevent any sneaky financial attacks. I even notified my HR department and boss that I had a family security situation and to never, ever give out my schedule or address to anyone claiming to be a relative. If they wanted a war, I was ready. But here's the funny thing about wars. They're exhausting. They drain your soul. I didn't want to fight them. I wanted to erase them from my life like chalk off a sidewalk. About 2 weeks later, the letters started. Handwritten. Sloppy. Some furious, others syrupy sweet. One from my mom, begging me to be reasonable. One from Marcus, blaming Kayla's hormones for the whole disaster. Even a letter from my dad, cold and stern, demanding I do my duty to family before it was too late. None of them ever apologized. Not once. Not for the break-in. Not for trying to force me out of my own home. Not for the years of cruelty that led us here. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a resource. And when that resource said no, they had no idea how to handle it. But I wasn't done yet. See, revenge doesn't always look like setting someone's life on fire. Sometimes, the best revenge is success, happiness, silence, and a very, very long memory. I started documenting everything. Every interaction, every voicemail, every text, every scribbled threat. I kept a folder titled Insurance, because if they ever tried to pull some stunt in the future, custody drama, financial fraud, elder care scams, I'd be ready to bury them under an avalanche of evidence. I talked to a lawyer. Spent 2 hours explaining the situation, handing over copies of everything. She listened carefully, nodded, and said, "You're doing everything right. Just stay quiet, stay smart, and if they push again, you push back through the courts." Hard. Exactly my plan. The final nail in the coffin came on a chilly Saturday morning. I was sitting on the porch drinking coffee, watching the mist roll over the fields, when I saw a familiar beat-up minivan creeping down my street. Marcus. Of course it was Marcus. He slowed down as he passed my driveway. I watched him through the security cam feed on my phone, sipping my coffee. He parked across the street. Sat there, watching my house, waiting, maybe, for me to come running out like the scared little brother he remembered. I didn't move. I let him sit there in his car, staring like a lost little boy, until, after 20 minutes, he finally peeled off and disappeared down the road. I haven't seen him since. Because here's the thing about people like Marcus. They only understand two things: compliance and consequences. And when you stop giving them the first, they have no choice but to face the second. In silence, in shame, and in complete, utter defeat. Exactly where they belong. It's been about a year since I slammed the door shut on Marcus, Kayla, and my parents. And here's the part they never seem to tell you about when you cut out toxic people. At first, it's unbelievably hard. The first few weeks felt like I was detoxing from some drug I didn't even know I was addicted to: guilt. The fear that maybe I was selfish. The little voice in my head, planted years ago, whispering, "What if you're the problem?" But every day that passed, that voice got quieter. And reality got louder. The fallout from that confrontation hit my family like a grenade. 3 days after the police visit, my parents sent out a mass email to every relative we had, spinning a wild story that I had turned my back on family and abandoned Marcus in his time of need. The thing is, our extended family knows Marcus. They know the way he's coasted through life like a tourist in his own failures. They know how my parents have always babied him and expected everyone else to pick up the slack. So, instead of the wave of sympathy they expected, they got radio silence. A few of my cousins even messaged me privately, telling me good for you, and it's about time someone said no. One uncle sent me a meme that just said, "Nobody owes you shit." It was glorious. Meanwhile, Marcus's situation got worse. Way worse. Turns out, Marcus had been banking on moving into my house because they were about to be evicted from my parents' place. My dad had recently taken a huge pay cut at work, and there wasn't enough money anymore to keep supporting Marcus's entire brood for free. Which is funny, because when I needed help years ago, they had no room and no money. Funny how that works. So within 2 months, Marcus, Kayla, and their 3 kids were living in a 2-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. No backyard. No nursery. No driveway for Marcus's precious truck. Just a tiny balcony overlooking a Taco Bell dumpster. Kayla, who had never worked a day in her life, had to get a part-time job at a gas station to help cover bills. Marcus took a night shift warehouse job, the same kind of job he once mocked me for having. The cosmic justice was almost poetic. And my parents? They didn't take it well. At first, they tried guilt, then anger, then silence. After about 6 months of being completely ignored, they showed up at my house uninvited one Saturday morning, holding a homemade pie and 2 forced smiles. I didn't even open the door. I stood on the porch with my arms folded, the security cam rolling, and calmly said, "You're trespassing. Leave now, or the police will be called." They sputtered. They pleaded. They whined about how family should forgive. But forgiveness isn't something you're entitled to just because you share blood. Forgiveness has to be earned. And they'd never even tried. Eventually, they left, faces red, pie left abandoned on my front steps like some sad bribe. I threw it straight into the trash. Since then, it's been blissfully quiet. No more calls. No more letters. No more pop-ins. I heard through the grapevine that Marcus still blames me for everything wrong in his life: his bad apartment, his crappy job, his strained marriage. Good. Let him. Let him gnash his teeth and rage against a world where he's no longer the golden boy everyone sacrifices for. Let him feel the sting of actual consequences for once. As for me, life has never been better. I finished renovating the house. I built a little greenhouse in the backyard. I adopted a rescue dog named Milo, who now spends his days sunbathing on the porch and barking at squirrels like it's a full-time job. I even met someone, a kind, hilarious woman named Elena, who thinks it's badass that I stood up to my toxic family. We're taking things slow. No pressure. No games. Just 2 grown-ups building something real, something earned. I'm not the broken, desperate kid living out of his truck anymore. I'm Aaron Barnes, homeowner, survivor, and master of my own damn life. And if cutting my family out is what it took to get here, then I should have done it years ago. If you told me 2 years ago that I'd be sitting here, in my own house, with my dog at my feet and peace humming through my walls, without a single connection to the people who raised me, I would have said you were crazy. I thought family was unbreakable. I thought blood was everything. But now I know the truth. Family is not who shares your DNA. Family is who respects your boundaries. Family is who shows up, not with demands, but with love. The people who tried to tear me down, guilt trip me, use me like a pawn in their entitled little games. They're not my family anymore. They're just people I used to know. When I first cut them off, I worried I'd feel lonely. There were nights I sat awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake, wondering if standing alone meant ending up alone. But over time, something amazing happened. I stopped feeling lonely because I started feeling free. Free to wake up every morning without a pit in my stomach. Free to open my door and know that every inch of this house is mine, earned, fought for, defended. Free to build a future without the dead weight of people who only saw me as a resource. And let me tell you something nobody tells you. When you finally cut toxic people out of your life, your world doesn't get smaller. It gets bigger. Suddenly, you have space. Space for real friends who cheer your wins instead of resenting them. Space for love built on mutual respect, not obligation. Space for dreams that aren't diluted by someone else's expectations. Space to breathe. Sometimes, when I sit on the porch in the evenings, watching Milo chase fireflies in the backyard, I wonder if they think about me. If Marcus sits in his crumbling apartment, wishing he hadn't bet everything on entitlement. If my parents, sipping cheap coffee in a too-quiet house, regret raising one son and spoiling another. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. It doesn't matter. Because their regret, their sadness, their chaos isn't mine to carry anymore. I built this life with my own two hands. I defended it with my spine, my will, and my voice. And today, every day, I choose peace over pity. I choose boundaries over betrayal. I choose me. And that's a choice I'll never regret.